WWE superstar Shotzi reportedly suffers a significant knee injury during an NXT Women's Championship match at last night's NXT television tapings, resulting in the match being stopped. We've got all of the details on that. Plus, Scott D'Amore, he's now out as the president of TNA Wrestling. We've got more details on his departure, as well as his attempts to purchase TNA Wrestling in the last couple of months. The NXT Tag Team titles changed hands last night on WWE NXT. We got the ratings for Monday night's edition of Raw on USA Network. John Moxley is set to face off against Dax Harwood on tonight's edition of AEW Dynamite in a first-time ever match. Matt Riddle reveals he's been in talks with TNA Wrestling, and Rush reveals he has recovered from his injury. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Let's start off talking about Shotzi and some really bad news when it comes to an injury she reportedly suffered last night during the NXT television tapings. Now, after wrapping up with last night's episode of NXT, WWE began filming for next week's episode, set to air on the USA Network in its usual time slot, 8 p.m. Eastern, on February 20. Now, as previously announced, next week's episode of NXT will see Lyra Valkyria defend her NXT Championship against SmackDown superstar Shotzi, who returned during last night's broadcast. But unfortunately, the title match was stopped abruptly as Shotzi reportedly suffered a significant injury. Now, there's a bit of a timeline to this one here. So, according to Fightful's Corey Brennan via social media, WWE officials halted the NXT Women's Championship match after Shotzi sustained a serious knee injury. Now, at the time, the circumstances weren't really yet to emerge or anything like that. It was said initially she was helped to the backstage area and she was being attended to by WWE's medical team. Now, following her participation in the double NXT taping, Shotzi was actually set to face Tiffany Stratton in a Women's Elimination Chamber qualifying match on SmackDown this Friday. Now, of course, depending on the severity of the injury, WWE may have to now find a replacement. But we then got a follow-up report coming from Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, confirming that Shotzi indeed had suffered a knee injury. During the second taping of NXT on February 13th, Shotzi would challenge Lyra Valkyria for the NXT Women's Championship. However, during the match, disaster struck as after taking a fall to the outside of the ring, where Shotzi hit her knee against the side of the ring during a spot planned to take the match through a commercial break, Shotzi would not be able to continue the match following the injury, and the match was stopped as Shotzi was helped to the back. Now, after speaking to several sources in NXT, Fightful's Corey Brennan was able to confirm that Shotzi was not able to place weight on her injured knee and was forced to hop to the back with assistance from WWE's medical team. It was apparent when Shotzi arrived backstage that she was in a large amount of pain. Officials backstage were said to be very concerned for Shotzi, and she was immediately taken for medical evaluation. Now, while it's been speculated by many following the recent string of worked injuries in NXT, Fightful can confirm that this injury was not a work or anything like that. One source said the injury was serious and there was no heat on Lyra Valkyria or Shotzi for what was described as a freak accident. Now, spoilers ahead if you don't wish to be spoiled for next week's episode, but of course NXT had to adapt what was happening at the television taping because of course there was a match in process. Now, following the injury, NXT General Manager Ava would come out and change the match to an open challenge, which was quickly answered by Lash Legend. After a brief beatdown from Legend, Lyra would rally and win the match to retain her title. Now, several sources in NXT commended Lyra, Legend, and Ava's availability and ability to adapt what was a very difficult situation for all involved. If we get any more details on the medical update from Shotzi, her knee injury, we'll let you know, but certainly it doesn't appear to be good news for the SmackDown superstar. Now, a big story last week was the firing of Scott D'Amore as the president of TNA Wrestling, and the details at the time were very murky and not very transparent. We've got more details on it, and it appears that despite Anthem wanting this to come across as a mutual separation, that's not what Scott D'Amore wanted. Now, Scott D'Amore is out as the TNA president, but he tried to hang on. According to a report from Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, he has learned that although the news was a shock to many, including the roster, the wheels were in motion for D'Amore's termination a month prior. Now, D'Amore adamantly did not want to leave TNA Wrestling, though Anthem had stated that they wished to present it as a mutual departure. DAmore was insistent that the two sides did not refer to it as his decision to leave or a mutual departure though. There were talent who claimed that it was relayed to them that DAmore had stepped down, but that wasn't the case. Beyond that, Ontario, where Anthem is based, has strict employment laws for employers, and not agreeing that the departure was mutual was in the best interest of DAmore moving forward. Now, there was correspondence between the two sides to aid the transition to new president Anthony Sassone into the role. Now, Fightful have been told that DAmore has spoken highly of Sassone, but was reiterated that he didn't want to leave the role. Now, a couple of weeks after his termination became evident, DAmore actually made efforts to buy TNA Wrestling, which were outright rejected by Anthem. There were rumors that DAmore tried before his termination. However, that was only before the firing was publicly known, not before DAmore became aware. So seemingly he became aware of the situation and said, wow, if I'm going to be out, I want to buy the company to stay in my role, and Anthem soundly rejected it. Now, there were these reports about Braun Strowman and TNA Wrestling. This goes back to when he was first initially released by WWE. There were so many reports, we covered it at the time, that Braun Strowman could be headed to Bound for Glory. This was, I think, in 2021, and the story was Braun for Glory, certainly, wasn't it? Now, regarding these recent reports about Braun Strowman having talked with TNA a few years back, TNA sources confirmed that they did speak with Braun Strowman and met with him. They negotiated with his agent and even discussed creative, but Fightful have been told it was far from a seven-figure deal as rumoured, because of course this stems around budget, something that Scott D'Amore wanted a larger budget and Anthem reportedly were looking to scale and cut back. Now, there was much made about the increase in budget and production upgrades coming to TNA Wrestling, but sources that Fightful have heard from within Anthem claim that many of those were actually related to software upgrades compared to anything else. The schedule for TNA looks to be the same this year as it was last year, but word is they wanted to reduce some of the costs compared to 2023, i.e. they were looking on scaling back or at least having cuts to the budget in general. Now, talent that Fightful have heard from were overwhelmed and unhappy about the move away from D'Amore, as many were loyal to him. So of course it is a developing situation still. But if we get any more detail about Scott D'Amore, his attempts to purchase TNA Wrestling, the reaction, talents wanting out, what have you, we'll let you know in the future. But what are your thoughts to all of the details there about the attempts to purchase TNA Wrestling, the rejection, D'Amore not wanting to leave the role, Anthem wanting to present it as a stepping down or a mutual parting of the ways, even though D'Amore, that's not what he wanted at all. Let me know your reaction to that in the comment section below. Now let's go back to NXT last night. We have brand new WWE NXT Tag Team Champions. Yes, this is a big story coming out of last night's episode of WWE NXT, because the unlikely duo has done it. After sweeping the competition in the 2024 Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, Bron Breakker and Baron Corbin earned the opportunity to challenge the families Tony D'Angelo and Channing Stacks Lorenzo for the NXT Tag Team titles. The title match was later slotted for the main event of this week's episode of NXT. With the tag titles on the line, both pairings dialed up the intensity. Towards the conclusion of the match, D'Angelo threw Corbin into the steel ring steps before proceeding to send Breakker crashing through the NXT commentary desk with some assistance from Lorenzo. Luckily for Breakker, Corbin broke up the subsequent pinfall attempt, providing an opening for the Wolf Dogs to shift momentum into their favour. After Corbin laid out Lorenzo with an end of days, Breakker then charged towards him with a spear to secure the pinfall and the NXT Tag Team titles. Last night marks Breakker's third championship in NXT, having already claimed 2 runs with the NXT Championship. For Corbin, this victory brings his first WWE title reign since 2017 when he held the United States Championship. Meanwhile, the family's second tag team title reign comes to an end at 92 days. What are your thoughts on them holding the tag team titles, and what do you think this means for Bron Breakker? We've seen him on SmackDown in recent weeks. We've seen him on Raw in recent weeks. What do you think it means for him? His run in NXT, what do you think it means for Baron Corbin? Could they be coming up as a tag team on the main roster? Let me know your thoughts about that as well. Speaking of the main roster, we have the ratings for Monday's edition of Raw on USA Network. Now, Raw on Monday did 1.75 million viewers with a 0.56 in the 18 to 49 and a 0.41 in the 18 to 34. Now, the number was down from the past 2 weeks. The show had a great second hour growth after starting lower than what has been normal following the end of the football season. Now, as I mentioned, we don't actually have the quarter hour ratings at the moment. They're not available, but the show was down 8% in viewers from the week prior and down 3% in the 18 to 49 demographic. Now, the difference in markup of the audience is more apparent compared to the same week 1 year ago. It was down 4% in viewers, but up 21% in the 18 to 49 and up 52% in the 18 to 34, which on the flip side means a substantial decline in over 50 viewers. So certainly what we are seeing is year upon year, Raw's audience is getting younger, which is very significant when it comes to sponsorships and really bucking the trend with what we've been seeing for pro wrestling for quite some time, is that the audience is getting older. Now it's getting younger as well. When you factor in the loss of homes on cable in the last year, this becomes even more apparent, as factoring in viewers are up 2% by percentage, but 18 to 49 is up 33% and 18 to 34 is up 67% as well. Now the 3-hour viewing figures were 8 p.m. was 1.79 million viewers, 9 p.m. was 1.85 million viewers, and 10 p.m. as is usual dropped down to 1.60 million viewers. What are your thoughts on that? Let me know your thoughts on WWE's Raw audience getting younger. Is this good news as they head into Netflix next year? Let me know your thoughts about it in the comments section below. Now, a big match has been announced for tonight's edition of AEW Dynamite on TBS, because former 3-time AEW World Champion Jon Moxley is set to face a first-time opponent on tonight's episode of Dynamite. On the February 10 edition of Collision, the Blackpool Combat Club's Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli defeated CMLL Star Jr. and S-Binge. Now, following the bout, Moxley called out any tag team to step up to the BCC. This led to FTR coming out to confront the duo and get involved in a huge pull-apart brawl. On February 13, AEW CEO Tony Khan took to social media to announce that Jon Moxley will go one-on-one with FTR's Dax Harwood on tonight's February 14 Valentine's Day edition of AEW Dynamite. Following the announcement, Harwood retweeted the post and noted he'll be making a rare appearance on Dynamite this week. He wrote, quote, "A collider invading the territory to take down their king. Hashtag AEW Dynamite. Hashtag AEW Collision." This is Harwood's, I believe, first match on Dynamite since April of last year as well. Now, it remains to be seen when AEW will make this FTR versus Blackpool Combat Club tag team match official. Also set for tonight's edition of Dynamite, Adam Copeland will face Daniel Garcia in a TNT title #1 contenders match, and Willow Nightingale will go one-on-one with Sky Blue. Now, we spoke about TNA wrestling earlier on. Got a bit of an update when it comes to a former WWE superstar that reportedly has held talks with TNA, and that is Matt Riddle. Now, this actually comes from Riddle himself. A released WWE star, Matt Riddle, claimed to have talks with TNA Wrestling since his departure from the company last year. Now, among stars being let go by WWE in September, arguably the biggest name was former United States and Tag Team Champion Matt Riddle. Despite controversy clouding the end of Riddle's tenure with the company, the former UFC star has taken his release in stride and has made notable moves as a free agent in 2024, competing for the likes of New Japan Pro Wrestling and MLW, to name a few. One destination many thought could potentially come in for the original bro is TNA, who has already featured other ex-WWE superstars let go around the same time as Riddle, such as Nick Nemeth, formerly known as Dolph Ziggler, and also Dana Brooke, now known as Ash by Elegance. Despite not seeing Riddle on TNA television as of yet, the 38-year-old recently confirmed that talks had taken place between himself and the company in an appearance on the Sunday Night's Main Event podcast. When asked about his plans going forward in wrestling, Riddle revealed the talk, saying, quote, "When I got done with WWE, it's kind of stressful working on TV all the time, especially with the travel. The money is awesome, it's definitely worth it, and the experience. Now I want to have a break from television after 90 days, and during the 90 days, I'm setting some dates up. I talked to some places, I've talked to TNA, I've worked with New Japan and MLW. You do film for television, but it's not the same as Monday Night Raw, 3 hours live, anything can happen, people are changing the script. You have 10 minutes for your match, now you have 5 minutes, it's extremely stressful. I like the pressure, but at the same time, I kind of wanted a little break from all of that. I'm choosing places more pay-per-view based, where I don't have to worry about going to commercial, so we can have that Fritos advertisement." Riddle is currently gearing up for what will be his highest profile post-WWE match, as he faces off with New Japan Pro Wrestling legend and current company president Hiroshi Tanahashi at New Japan New Beginning on February 23. So Riddle saying he has had talks with TNA. Would you like to see him in TNA wrestling? Finally, Roosh has provided an update on his injury recovery. Now, back in December, AEW's Roosh and his band of Ingobernables made it clear that they were declaring war on the fledgling promotion. And then seemingly radio silence followed. Now, Roosh announced on social media that he has recovered from an undisclosed injury and is ready to continue his aforementioned battle with the company. He said, quote, "I was injured and now I'm cleared to return to AEW. I have been home focused on returning. La Faction Ingobernable is full of anger and ready to start the war." Now, Los Faction Ingobernables includes Roosh's brother, Drillistico, as well as former Dark Order member Preston Vance and Jose the Assistant. It's not clear what kind of injury Roosh suffered as it stands. The former CMLL World Light Heavyweight Champion has not wrestled since AEW World's End on December 30, where he teamed with Brody King, Jay Lethal, and Jay White in a losing effort against Bryan Danielson, Claudio Castagnoli, Daniel Garcia, and Mark Briscoe. After leaving AAA ahead of last June's Triple Mania, Roosh signed a new contract with AEW back in July. Roosh then went on to compete in December's Continental Classic tournament, which he did not win but put forth a dominant showing in the tournament's Gold League. His departure from AAA came with a bit of controversy, but then he returned to wrestle at the Triple Mania show in Tijuana last July. The former Los Gobernables member also welcomed a new daughter into his family, born in June of last year. But there you go, guys. That's the latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.